Hello, good morning, happy Friday. Hello, Joey. How are you doing today? We have a Zilby hanging out with us. I'm experimenting with a different camera angle for this. See if I can sort of get the two places he likes to hang out. Or I guess two of the main places he likes to hang out here. All right, so the plan today. We're gonna reread this article. We're gonna go through it, make sure it's good, or at least it's good enough. And then we're going to record an article on it and then figure out what the next thing is going to be. So I suppose we'll just jump into it. All right, so we have handling errors in Axum. Great Friday indeed. Got out of school 2 full hours early. Didn't have a teacher assigned to a subject, so a teacher didn't show up. Oh, that's always interesting. It like very rarely happened. I think it happened like once to me in my entire life, but it was exciting. And you just arrived home. Well, congratulations on being able to get an early start on your weekend. That sounds awesome. Let's see. Do you have any fun plans this weekend? And in the meantime, we'll continue reading. All right, objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe why we want to handle our errors, return a result with an error, create a custom error struct. Okay, so not that the teacher didn't show up, but one of your subjects doesn't have a teacher assigned to it. Oh, okay. That is subtly different than what I've ever had happen. I have not had like, okay, you signed up for this course or you have a teacher or whatever, but or have a course, but like, yeah, nobody's teaching that. Got have fun. I've had courses canceled. Like, okay, this course just won't happen. Go find another course. Ever. All right, a place for the video. Plus, also we're gonna try the YouTube embed code potentially. I haven't tried that with one of the other ones yet. If account has plans taken care for 2 days, if you're the cousin, then it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, well then have a lot of fun. I'm gonna guess it's different. So like change of pace is always nice. Well, sometimes nice. Why do we want to handle our errors? Let's say that we have a route handler that is running some code that returns a result. We might be tempted to use an unwrap to get to the OK arm and move on. But what happens if the result was an error? We can simulate this by creating a route handler and a function that returns a result. I feel like this is run on. We can simulate this. Maybe like let's simulate this. We'll begin by creating a route handler and a function that returns a result. And we can have that function always fail. We'll use the error result along with the bail macro for this. Okay, so starting with this. So we have our use error, we go through that stuff. We've already done the code and verified that it worked. Okay, great. When we connect to this route handler, when we connect this route handler to the router and attempt to hit the route, we get a strange error. Error, server return nothing, no headers, no data. This is not standard behavior for an API error. We want to return status codes when possible. It is interesting to note that the Axum server is still running after this though. Having an unwrap fail or panicking will not result in the server. Will not restart the server. Rather, it will catch the panic and stay running. This is so that a catastrophic error won't cause the server to stop working for other routes. Returning a result from a route handler. Let's update our example route to handle the error in a way that tells the client that something went wrong. We can do this by returning a result from the route handler. Okay, so we are now returning a result, but it doesn't really do anything. Note that we are using two types of result now. The result being returned from the route handler is a standard result. The result from the can fail function is an error result. The result from the route handler isn't really helping us yet. We have the success part set up, but we can't use the question mark operator yet. Let's set the route handler result to return the error. Return an error that makes sense. Yeah, that sense to Axum. The result from the route handler isn't really helping us yet. We have the success part set up, but we can't use the question mark operator yet. Let's set the route handler result to use the error that makes sense to Axum. Okay, so now that returns a tuple of status code string. We need to return a tuple type for the error case so that we can have a 500 error. Otherwise, we would end up returning a 200 OK, which is misleading when there is an error. Finally, we need to transform the error from the can fail result into the type of error that a route handler is expecting so that we can use the question mark operator. We'll do this with the map error method. Okay, so then we use map error, turn that into an internal server error, get that. Returning the tuple status code string is a good start, but it can get, next section, custom error struct. Returning the tuple status code string is a good start, but it can get really annoying to have to write that out for every route handler. We could create a type alias with type error response equals status code string, but this still doesn't address the core problem. We're replicating a lot of code in a way that will be more painful if we need to change how the API responds with errors. We could fix this with an error struct and have our functions that return results instead return this custom error. Let's create this custom error in its own module. I'm calling it API-error.rs. Okay, so own module, I'm calling it API.rs, and let's make this a end of the sentence, and I'm placing it in the root of the project. I guess I'm placing it next to live.rs. And pulling it in and importing it. Okay, Let's create this custom error in its own module. I'm calling it API-error.rs, and I'm placing it next to live.rs and importing it with the mod API error. API error. That's, there we go. Okay. We're storing the status code and a message that we're willing to send back to the user of the API. Let's do in this in the API error, we are storing the status code and a message that we're willing to send back to the user of the API. Creating this struct can be tedious, and since the status code would often be a 500, let's use the builder pattern to have a maybe like creating an instance. Creating instances of this struct can be tedious. And since the status code would often be a 500, let's use the builder pattern to have a default and only set what we really need to. Okay, so we add that in. So we add in a new. We can then add a function to the API error impl block to set the status code in the case that this isn't supposed to be a 500 error. So there we go. We want to have the option of logging the real error to the console, which will help us debug when things go wrong. We'll create a log method that fits into the builder methods that takes in an error and logs it with tracing. It's also a good idea to turn our API error into a real error by having it implement the error trait. This will immediately cause the compiler to let us know that we're missing some trait implementations that are required now. We'll need to implement display and debug. Debug is easy. We can derive it. We'll need to manually implement display. Finally, we need to implement into response for the API error so that Axum can run into on it behind the scenes for us. Let's put like something like that. We are now ready to use this new error in our code. Let's rewrite can fail to do something that gives us a real error that we can log and then return an API error. It's already returning a real error, right? I think it was already returning a real error. Now we want it to return an API error. So let's rewrite can fail to do something that gives us an API error. That we can log and then return. A really easy way to force an error is to attempt to turn a large integer into a small unsigned integer. We can do this with let small equals I64 max try into. I probably want to do something like let small, which will be a like U8. The try into will return a result, and in this case, it will always be an error. We can map error this result to turn it into the API error in the can fail function. That way the route handler doesn't need to care about what kind of error is being returned. It can just use the question mark. We can finally clean up the we panic route handler and replace the map error method there with a simple question mark operator. Don't forget to set the error return type to API error. And we're done. We are now using a centralized error struct that's a real error, and making it so we can trace where errors come from, and at the same time, keeping good simple messages for our users. And as a bonus, our route handlers can remain simplified. Here's the final full code for the errors.rs file. And here's the full code for the API error.rs file. And that's it. We're done. I think that's pretty good. We found 2 small problems. I can actually change this, can I? Okay. Video time. All right, so we don't need this error at all for this one. And I think we're just going to do the same pattern for this. So go through the 3 different things, chat about errors. It'll be interesting. I'm curious how long this is going to take. I'm thinking it might be like, this might end up being like 15, 20 minute long video. Maybe longer. It's hard to tell. Ooh, I forgot to run to create that. Let's update this. So I want to it's like rust log, right? Log equals debug. I think that's what it is. So I'll update you, and then I want to okay, so I have an install, but that installs from the other direction around. And I don't necessarily feel like trying to be clever and creating a bunch of like different shell scripts. Let's just create a different one. So we'll do so upload local. Oh, VS Code. Okay. Okay, we'll upload you. So let's do. All right. So this is gonna be. We have updated the local version of our CHRC file. So we need to overwrite the one here. Upload to GitHub. Basically, this is a super simple file. So we're running inside of here. So first of all, I suppose we want to like verify that that file exists. So we probably want to do something like a if what is it? Something like, is it double? Is it double or is it single? I can't remember anymore. Something like if file home slash CSHRC, then I could then say like echo found CSHRC file in home directory. Otherwise, we're going to echo could not find C file in home directory, and exit, we'll just exit with a non-zero. All right, so we verified that the file exists. Then I want to overwrite this one. I suppose also doing a git pull would be a good idea, just to make sure we have the latest one here before I overwrite it. We want to do a git pull. And then for every single one of these, we want to wrap it in an if, right? So if git pull, then we can echo updated .cshrc from a GitHub. But if it's an else, we want to echo failed to update and we'll exit too. Okay, next up. Then, okay, so we get pulled. So then I want to copy so that to essentially here. So copy you. We want to echo copied in .cshrc. I also can do like a not, can I? I probably could do like a not in there. I don't remember anymore. I don't remember off the top of my head how to do that. Okay, and then once that's now in the directory, I want to upload it. So we're gonna do a if git push. Oh wait, we have to commit, right? So git commit and then this will just be uploading, updating C from local. Okay, so if now I could also like have a message show up and like read that in, but that feels like work. Okay, so if this succeeds, now I echo. I've also done like dots as a pattern too, and that works as well. But okay, I don't know if I care that much about it. I do want to like leave these as logs at least the first time to make sure that they're all running. Zizith, hello! Ew, again with this guy with Axum. I know. How like how horrible. I'm a terrible person for forcing Axum upon the world. how are you doing? Great to see you. Well, thank you. Okay, updating ZSH from local. Okay, so updating from local, you're gonna be let's see. So that's a commit, so committed to Git. Otherwise, we're, you know what? I forgot to exit 3. We are going to echo failed to commit new file, new version. Hello, Stefan. Do I own a house? I mean, I have a house. I don't like own a house by myself. But I do have a house. Also, how are you doing? Good morning. Let's see. If let's see, last one would be push, right? So if git push, then echo. I'm doing pretty good. I mean, it's a Friday. Fridays are always nice. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty good. Steven, you were last time you were here, you were chatting about work and some things happening, right? Did those get resolved, or were they good? Were they bad? Still waiting? Hopefully, like something's going on that's like not terrible. Xanax, hello. How are you doing today? All right, and then we're good. So then the final thing is echo local changes pushed to GitHub. Local, probably should just say local.zshrc push to GitHub. So if I run this now, there we go. Local push to GitHub. Now if I try this again, that actually failed to commit new version of .zshrc file. Okay, that's fine. You're really busy at work, so you don't know. Well, I mean, okay. I hope that like it gets better, so it's not like, so it becomes more of a I do know. But I understand. I've been there to the point where it's like, okay, it's like super busy, but also like I hope you get into a better situation soon. Okay, now I think that I can. I'm never sure where I want to throw like log messages for this. Oh, you know what? I can put this in a. So if we put it like a dot get ignore, then I can throw this into a log. So I could throw this into a log file. Yes, that would work. So I want a like I guess this will, we could have like a single log file for all of these. So shell like out, like script out. That's what I put for get ignore, right? Script out. Okay, so script out, and then let's. Now I could let that all go to output, but I don't know if I actually like that. So instead, what we can do is let's go to upload local. I want to I probably want to, well, I want the file. So this is going to be log file equals, this is going to be script out like that. And so things like, okay, so if you exist, then we found it in a home directory. So I do want to log that out. So that's good. Could not find. Okay, so the errors always wants to go out. I forget how to put an output like this to standard error. There's probably a flag on echo I can do for that. Okay, so I probably want, for all these things, I want get pull, and we want to do you go to oh, and let's update you. So let's say we're gonna echo running, or like I guess like, yeah, running upload to GitHub script. And I want to append this. I'll probably just do something like echo append this to script out. I know I could probably do, let's see, let's actually do this. We'll do new line, new line. Okay, so that should be happy. And then I want to do this exact same pattern over and over and over again. We're going to, okay, so like you don't have any output, so you're fine. This echoes out here. So then you're gonna update this to log file. I want to take you. And so for every if statement, we want to throw you in there. Oh, why? Okay, that one worked. Okay, so if I do that, let's run you again. There we go. We should now have a script out. All right, we have running upload to GitHub script already up to date on branch main. Your branch is up to date. Untracked files. Okay, so we're good to go there. Excellent. And then let's add in upload. I guess I want to add in git ignore too. So adding upload script and ignoring log file. Okay, so if I don't need that, okay, so you can come over here. When I open up, should use the right mouse for that. When I open up you and I echo $sign would help. There, it is set to debug. So that seems to have worked, and I believe that the latest version is now on GitHub, so you can actually see what that is. And I have an update, so when I do it with other profiles or anything else, it's going to be much easier for me. So that's a nice little detour. Okay, so I also want to go back. We're going to go to objectives over here so I can see that. Describe why we want to handle errors. Return a result with an error. Create a custom error struct. Get that going. Okay. And then the custom error struct is like pretty simple. We're just we're implementing error and we're implementing into response on it. Yeah, so I think, yeah. All right. I think I'm about ready to do a recording. So I'm gonna turn on that timer. Recording message. Basically, if you've all seen me do a recording, you know this spiel. If you haven't, I'm gonna be dropping into a recording for a lesson this course. We basically aren't showing what we have on stream, so I'm gonna be turning off. Let's see what I'm going to turn off. I'm going to turn off the desktop audio. I'm going to turn off the Twitch alerts. I'm going to turn off Zilby. We have just the microphone, the main camera, and the actual code. So that's all that's going to be on the screen. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, go ahead and put them in chat. I actually can still see them while I'm recording. All interest has been lost. The cat is gone. Yeah, that's true. It's you know, the cat is the main character here. Zilby just allows me to stream for him. Let's see. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, go ahead and put them into chat. I will be reading them. But then I will, if I can, I'll respond to them sort of like in the context of the video. Otherwise, I'll get to them when we're done. With this one, we're going through a lot. This was the longest article we've written so far, so it's like 200 and something lines. And I don't do like a one-to-one just reading through the article. It's sort of like just going as we go with this. So it's gonna be it's I don't know how long this is gonna be. It's gonna be interesting. I'm guessing around 20 minutes, but it could be longer. So with that, um, let's let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about handling errors in Axum. So far, we just sort of respond with either like a status code, or we can respond with JSON. We could put errors inside of the JSON, but getting back either only a status code with nothing else, with like no message, or or a JSON but with a 200 request isn't really all that helpful. Plus, also like, what do we do if we handle those? Like, how do we handle those errors? Let's go through the different options and sort of like see what we can do. So I have a brand new basic Axum application here. Let's go ahead and create a new route. I'm going to call this errors. Errors.rs. And in our mod, we're going to go ahead and mod this in. There you go. And in errors, let's create a very basic route handler. So we're going to call this pub async function. It'll be maybe like handling errors. Right now, we're going to start with just something that, well, ironically doesn't error at all. And in our mod, let's go ahead and wire this up to use this. I'm going to put this in a route that we call panic, because it's going to panic and cause errors. And let's just go, just for ease sake, we'll just use this with a get request. And I need to, so first use, we'll do Axum routing get. We'll use errors, handling errors, and I'll throw in the handling errors in here. All right, so we should be getting a 200 back if I hit this. So just to make sure we've got that, let's go ahead and hit this with Thunder Client. We'll do a new request. Let's put this over to the right. I'm gonna do a get to localhost port 3000 panic. And okay, we've got our 200 back. We've got our logs working, so everything is going the way we expect it to go. All right, so, well, the first option is to just not handle things very well. So what would happen if I just threw a panic inside of here? So if I just add a straight up panic and I say, I'm panicking. I think panicking is with a K. What happens with this? Let's find out. So if I hit send, we notice here we have a status error. This is very different than like a status 500, which are good. Status error is, well, really bad here. We don't want our server to be responding with, well, nothing, or in this case, it kind of is responding, but it's an error response. If there is an error, we'd rather it respond with a 500 status code and some kind of message to say what's going on. However, not everything is terrible. Notice that the server is still running. If I hit this over and over and over again, it's still up and running. So what's happening here is that Axum is catching this panic that would normally crash the server. It's keeping the server up and running. It's responding with essentially just nothing at all to this specific request. But if we have like hundreds of routes set up for other things, those will all continue working as expected. So that is silver lining to this. That being said, let's be careful about using panics in our code. So let's talk about like what we can do instead. Well, let's see. So we have this. Well, let's if we want to return some kind of status code if it's an error, but also not a status code if it's not an error, then we'll need to return a result. So return a result here. I'm going to return a normal result. And a normal result, the first argument to this, well, that's going to be the okay route. Now, I don't have anything okay here, so I'm just going to say, okay, it's going to be nothing. But if you're not great, let's go ahead and return a string. It's gonna be a problem here, but we'll see that pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and we'll just say, hey, you're never gonna be okay. We're just gonna return a string. So that's gonna be I'm an error. To own that. You're okay, you've compiled, and if we hit this, well, we get the I'm an error, but we also got a 200 okay, which is not great. That's also not what we want. So we have to actually return this. Let's go ahead and close that down so we have a little bit more room. We have to return a tuple type here with the status code. So we want a status code, and then a string is the second thing. For the status code, let's go ahead and import that in. So you now have to turn into a tuple type. We'll do a status code of, let's say, internal server error. If we save that, now we get the 500 internal server error and I'm an error. Okay, so now we're starting to get someplace. We're returning an actual error. Let's one up this example. Let's actually create a function that's going to cause an error for us. So in this case, we're going to do a pub. This one maybe doesn't need to be a public or an async function. Let's do just will fail. Will fail. If we call this, we can have this return. Now, normally we use a lot of errors. So let's just go with that. So this will be an error result. We don't really care about the result because we're always going to fail. And I'm just going to straight up bail from this function and say, yeah, I always fail. The bail function here is basically going to return a error for us. And it's a good way for us to set up an ad hoc message without having to use something like this error to create like a full enum error and pass that around. Okay, great. So we have this will fail. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. We'll say, yeah, if you get to the end, you get to return an okay. We're not going to get to the end though. I don't want to do that. I want to do that. Okay, so let's call will fail now. So will fail, but of course this has a result. So if I just run this, Rust Analyzer is going to be a little bit unhappy with us, saying, hey, you need to handle this result. Obviously, if I unwrap this, that's going to be the same as a panic. And to show that off, we get that same error here. So crashing is not a good way to handle this. Now, I can convert the error result into this type of result with a map error. So we can do this right here. So we can do a map error. This takes a closure. So we're going to get the error from error. And I can now turn this into whatever I want. So in this case, having some kind of like tracing log is usually nice. Let's go ahead and tracing. Is this brought in? It's not brought in. Tracing error. Oh, right. That's the name of the package. We don't need to use it. It's already here. Okay, tracing error. And let's just throw in the error here. That should be fine. And then I also want to return this entire thing. So we're going to say I want a tuple type with status code. It's going to be an internal server error. And then the string. So I want the error. Let's just do a toString on that. Okay, it's still yelling at me, but it's yelling at me because, well, the result still isn't being used because map error doesn't do anything with the error. It just changes what the error looks like. So it's converted the error from the report error that we get from error, and it's turned it into this shape here. So at that point in time, I can now question mark you. Okay, so that's slight improvement. We can use question mark. If we hit send, all right, we get this 500 internal server error. And notice this error is now being sent back to the user. That may or may not be what you want. You could potentially choose to overwrite that and just change it to be more user-facing error at this point in time. But this, like putting map errors in our route handlers everywhere, kind of sucks. It's you can imagine that our route handlers will get really long, not because of lots of logic, but just because these map errors are, well, they can get long. Notice that if I want some kind of tracing on here, that's a minimum of, well, essentially 4 lines. So we can let's actually just implement an error. We'll have to abandon error, abandon the bail, but we're going to create our own error struct, which then we can just pass through the code. We'll still have a map error in some circumstances, but I think it'll be much better and it won't be in a route handler. Let's go ahead and implement this. So I'm going to create a new error. I'm going to create this over in another file to make it a little bit easier to see. So let's go ahead and move this way over to the right. Give ourselves some room. And I'm going to create in source a errors. I'm going to call this API error. RS. And we're going to throw this over to the right here. Over here, we're going to open up lib, and I have to mod this in. I really like to have my mods up top, so I'm going to move you up there. We're going to do mod API error. Pull these together a little bit, clean that up. We don't need this to be a public mod because anything that's a child of the library, which is all of our code besides main, has access to this because library has access to this. So we're fine here. So once this is added into the system, we have the mod in, we can now start creating our struct. So we're going to have a pub struct API error. And there's a couple things that we want to store in here. Every time that we create an error, we need the status code, some kind of status code. So we need to know, well, what is this? So let's mark the code here. This could be just a good old Axum status code. And then we need some kind of message. Now, to be really clear to myself, I want to let whoever's coding on this, which, is me, know that this is meant for the end users. We're going to have a public facing message. And this could be a string. If I wanted some other messages around here, we can totally do that. Like I can have a private message or a log message or something else. Any other metadata if I want like a JSON struct to send back instead of a string, we can then store data that would be turned into that JSON at this point in time. But I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. Now I can foresee having to create this API error everywhere would really suck. So we're going to use a builder pattern for this. We're going to impl API error, and we're going to start with the new function. So pub function new. We're going to take in the message, and I'm going to just also rename this public facing message, which is, I'm just going to say a stir. And we're going to return a self. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so if I have that public facing message, the code, well, by default, most codes that we're going to use are internal server errors. So I think that we could just set this to be a 500. So that code equals status code internal server error, and then we're going to return itself. We have that code. We have the public facing message, which is the public facing message. We can just do an into on it, which is going to convert it over. To owned would also work just as well. That we are not in Vim. All right, so we have a new, so I can create this as a new function. So let's say I wanted to convert, let's go back over to errors. Say I wanted to convert this will fail, and I wanted you to be an actual error instead of this error, well, result. So at this point in time, let's change this over. You're going to return a result. If you're okay, we'll do nothing right now, but that would be our okay value if it could do something. And then we're going to say you are going to be an API error that you return. So we can't do a bail. So we need to create the brand new API error for this. So we're going to do let our, I shouldn't need to do any kind of error for this. I could just create it. There's something else though that I want to show off. I want to show off like what happens if we actually do like something that really errors, like not an error of just like making one up. What if we actually do something that causes an error? Well, the easiest way that I know to force an error is to convert one number to another number that doesn't match. We can do that really easily. So let's do this will be our like small number. I'll say you're a U8, and I want you to be a I64. We're going to set you equal to an I64 max. Can't do an into because it knows that that's not going to work, but I can do a try into. Now a try into, if I mouse over this, does return a result with an error in it. Okay, so that's really good. But of course, I can't use a question mark with this because these two errors are not compatible. So we're going to have to do this map error here. So we're going to map the error. We're going to take in a closure here. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger over here now. So we have you as an error. I don't really like the idea of like throwing a tracing in at this point in time. I would love to have that part of the error if we want it to. So we're going to just start with creating and returning the error all together in one thing. So this is now going to be our API error new. We have to have a public facing message, which I very rarely want the public facing message to be what the error says. So I'm just going to hard code these in whenever I create them. So in this case is there was an error. Please try again. Even though I know this is not going to work. Maybe I would do something like we're aware of it and we're fixing it, or go take a look at our send an email to support, or some kind of whatever message we want to do. So if I do new like this, it's going to return a self, which is exactly what we want, which means that I can now question mark you, and at the end we have to return okay. And so this works. To make this side work over here, we're going to need to convert you into, and I want you to be an API error, don't I? So I'm going to say, hey, you're going to be an API error. But this is not going to work yet. We'll take a look and we'll fix that over here. So will fail can now just be this question mark. All right, well, you're happy over here, but we have a couple different problems. No, not live. Our router should have some. Where's our? Oh, it's mod routes. Yeah, this is having problems saying, hey, this is not cool. Things are happening. So we are, let's see. We need to come back over here to fix this. So everything over here is kind of working fine. We have now created an API error. The next step up is going to be to, well, let's see. What do we do after we create it? Well, right now it's a 500 error code. What if I wanted to change this? What if I wanted to say, actually, this is your fault, client? We should make this a 400 code. So let's create a function to do that. So hub function set code. I wanted to be this as part of that builder pattern, so we can just do a dot when we're creating the error inside of here. So we're going to take in a mute self and a new code, which is going to be a status code. And I want to return a self, which means inside of here, we then just do self.code equals the code, and we can just return self. That's it. Okay, we could just immediately use this now. So here we have, here's our API error new. At the end of new, which is going to be this parentheses right here, I can now do set code. I want this to be a status code of maybe a bad request. So that's a 400 error. All right. This still won't work. We're still erroring out, but we'll get to that. Next up, what if I want to log this? So let's actually set that up over here. Maybe I do, maybe I don't want to log things. I'm just going to go ahead and add in a function for this. We're going to call this log. We're going to take in ownership of self, but I don't actually need to mutate it. So we're just going to take self. We're going to return a self. We're going to just do a tracing error, and we can just throw in self dot. Actually, you know what? We don't have the real error. I want the real error here. So let's take in an error that's going to implement the error trait. The error trait being something that we consider a real error, which API error isn't a real error yet. We'll get there. Okay, so then I want just to trace out that. And then we'll return self. Implement error, yeah, we need an import error. This is going to be a standard error. All right, so that makes you happy here, which means over here, we can now add in after we set our code. Let's go ahead and log that. And then we pass in this error. So the one that's labeled the try from int error, we're now going to actually see what that error is in our logs, but the customer isn't going to see that at all. So we've now protected ourselves, but we can still get full information. Excellent. And VS Code finally figured out that we probably want to put these all in one line, so that's nice. All right, what's next? I mean, that's pretty much all we want here, right? We've changed the code, we've logged it out, we've set a message. We now need, well, this needs to go out to, everything, right? So whenever Axum tries to return something like this, it's going to run into response on it. Unfortunately, I can't just do something like into response on here. That's just not going to work. So we have to manually set that, and there's no derive for that for API error. So let's go ahead and over here, we're going to do an impl into response for API error. Implement missing members, and this is actually not as scary as it might sound. We just need to return something that implements response. We already know it's that tuple type that's going to have the code and then the message, which we already have the code and the message. So we're going to return a tuple. We're going to put in a self.code on the left-hand side. And for the second element, we're going to put, well, the message, so self dot public facing message. And that's it. Now, I can't just return the tuple itself. I need to convert it into a response. Luckily, there's an into response method available for us. So I just run that. And that makes you happy. Suddenly, our server is compiling again. We can now run this. So I can say, hit send. Hey, there was an error. Please try again. And if we look here, here's our error, out of range integral type conversion attempted. So I can actually see where the error happened. I can also see this message coming out here. Okay, things are looking good. We could call it done at this point in time, but I want to show you how to turn this into a real error, because passing this around as a result, yeah, it's fine, but it doesn't implement error, which means that if you want to make this work with any other error handling library, it won't right now. But we can do that ourselves. There's no derive for error itself, so we have to implement that ourselves. So this is inside of API error. We're going to do an impl error for API error. And there's actually nothing we need to implement. They have default function methods for this already, so we're good for that. Now it does yell at us because we need to implement display, and it also needs to implement debug. Display is we're gonna have to do that ourselves, but debug's easy. We can just come up to the top and we can derive debug. Okay, so that takes care of one of the requirements, but the other requirement is display. So now we have to implement that manually. So impl display. This one needs to be this display, which is, we can't see it, but it's, I believe, standard format display. Does it show that? Yeah, core format. So standard format display for API error, and implement missing members, and we get this function. This function looks a little bit scary when we first look at it, but in the end, it's actually pretty easy to implement. We're going to use the write macro, which is very similar to the print line macro. The big difference with write macro is that we have to pass it a formatter, which is nice because we've been given a formatter here as part of this, well, this function. So we don't even have to worry about that. And now it's just print line essentially. So this display is what happens if we try to print out an error to the console. We never do that. So we can write whatever we want in here and it doesn't really matter. I kind of want to put like maybe the public facing message just in case. So we're just gonna like that, and we'll do a reference to self.public facing message. And write returns exactly what this function is expecting. So this is all we need to do. Our code is compiling again. Everything is working as expected. If I hit the server, we still get the error as an error, so that's good. Let's see. I think I have some warnings in the code. Is that right? Yeah, we have a problem here. Right, I still have bail installed because we were using that, but we're no longer using any error handling libraries at all. We've now just using native results, and we've written our own error handler that does everything we want. So this is what our route handlers end up looking like. We just run our functions and we can just question mark them, and we're good to go. They don't need to worry about anything else. The route handlers have a little bit of extra work for them to do. They get to do their thing, and then if they can possibly fail, we do need to map that error at this point in time. We can then give it a good public-facing message for what happened. And then finally, we can set whatever the code it is. So we know at this point in time if it's our fault or if it's the user's fault or if it's something else. And we can choose to log it or not. And then that gets sent up, and then it gets handled. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully you'll be able to now implement your own errors inside of Axum and keep your route handler clean, because it's going to be basically routing traffic between different sort of sub functions. And then those will be the ones handling, well, whatever is going wrong, hopefully. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Hello, everybody. Domoroy. Thank you so much for a raid. Sorry I wasn't able to respond. When I do these recordings, I kind of don't show that I'm on Twitch. So I have to do things like hide the music, which we're bringing back. Let's see. Let's bring back Twitch alerts. And of course, the most important thing, we'll bring back Zilby. Let's see. What did I miss? So Demorai, thank you again for the raid. Awesome to have you here. How was your stream, by the way? And what were you working on? Rondev, hello. Morishana, hello. Well-typed witch, hello. That's an awesome name. Let's see. Matensis, hello, and thank you. Twisted Seed, hello. No hi YouTube for you. Yeah, sorry, I don't have chat for YouTube. Plus I then hide it. Like I tell YouTube that we don't exist, essentially. Yeah, you know the deal. You've been here before. How are you all doing today? Hopefully we're all having a good Friday. Good, you only just started streaming this week. Partially inspired from watching me. Oh, thank you. We're working on an OCaml playlist, transfer tool, and some work on your NeoVim plugin. Oh, and you have that when I see tsc.nvim, I'm thinking TypeScript. And you're good, Morishana? That's awesome to hear. Oh, yes. Thank you for that. I will turn off that timer. I have the recording video timer on like the shortest timer that I'm allowed to do is 5-minute timer. It runs the TypeScript compiler async in NeoVim. Oh, interesting. Okay. I've never written any plugins for NeoVim. I've just used them. It's you're writing it in Lua, right? I think you have the choice. You can write it in Lua or you can write it in VimScript. Looks like you're choosing Lua. Lua is way nicer, I would imagine. So it's been a while since I've used Lua, but I've only done Lua for game dev, which is an interesting choice of the language, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Lua, Lua's an interesting scripting language. It doesn't have semicolons. The only data structure that it has is what's called a table, which is a weird combination of a object and an array. Lua was one of your first languages writing WoW plugins as a 14-year-old. Yeah, that was one of the big things. Lua is used as like a embedded language for a lot of games. You did some Squirrel. I'm not familiar with Squirrel. Wait, it supports semicolons as a comma replacement. Oh, that is hilarious. Yeah, I never even tried that. Wait. Huh. If I click in the code now, I get a cursor at this point? But of course, if I try to type, it's like not real. That's a lie. GitHub is lying to me and making it look like an editor. And it's only kind of like an editor. F7 for let me try that. Pressing F7 turns caret browsing on or off. This feature replaces a movable cursor in web page. Oh, is this a Firefox thing? Oh, it's not a, okay. Huh. Wait, do I want to turn caret browsing on? No, so this doesn't exist up here. It only works in here. I don't think this is caret browsing. I think this is a GitHub thing. I know, interesting, huh? I do like that you can get the symbol search in here. So it like shows you all the really cool stuff going on it. But yeah, Lua programming is fun. It's like a breath of fresh air because it's such a simple language, but you can still do everything you want, which is just like it's just great. It is very dynamic and simple. Yeah, I actually like if I'm gonna program with something without strong types, that's like backend, I would much rather pull Lua out than like Python or JavaScript. Mostly just because I've done game dev with it and I just have positive memories with it. So that's a thing. Oh yeah, an iteration is a breeze. They don't have classes, but you can kind of sort of make it happen. It's so interesting. It's part of the reason you love NeoVim. Yeah, so I should probably look into doing some kind of plugins. I'm really curious about what Helix's plugin manager is gonna end up being. Oh, and you have your dot files too. I will open that up so I'll remember to throw that into the video links notes. Yeah, it's a great language for both configuration and extension. Yes. All right. So, I've got that video. I should rename that video before I forget. How long was that? I don't remember. Let's see. Tomorrow, do you have a community where if people are installing your dot files, like they can find you? Like where's the best place for people to find you? So obviously I'm not streaming 24/7, and you're not going to be here all the time. Let's see. I want to call this Axum errors. And let's throw that into courses. Actually, I do usually do that after the stream. You don't yet, but I guess you should probably figure that out. But if any of y'all run into issues, you'll Demora on pretty much every platform, so just DM me. All right, we'll keep that in mind. Okay, so back to here. The course I'm working on is an Axum course. So basically, if you're not familiar with Axum, it is a web server. So the server side, if you're familiar with something like Express with Node or Flask with Python, what are some of the other simpler ones? I don't remember. I don't even know if Lua has one. But that's this is essentially what that is. It's a very simple backend framework. It's not really giving you any suggestions for how to do stuff. It pretty much gives you a router and the ability to run your code and middleware and that kind of stuff. I'm with you, Morishana. I haven't been looking at Reddit for how long now? It's like earlier this year. But yeah, I stopped looking at Reddit, and I would say that my quality of just sort of like doing stuff and like mental thoughts have improved. You just follow Reddit for cat vids and Neovim stuff. I had started with that. But then like it's just hard not to like keep on adding new stuff. You read 3 books? Oh man, I did the same thing. I added in I got a bunch of books, I got some audiobooks. Oh man, it is fascinating how like reading actual books instead of just like comments that are people putting out there changes things. It was surprising to me. All right, so we have done this. So I can get rid of you. What's next for today? I guess over here I can mark you're done too. All right. I haven't figured out what I want to do for the assessments themselves. I know I probably want to create some kind of like article for them, but I haven't decided what that's gonna look like yet. So maybe we'll just continue with this. Passing state into route handlers. Oh, that could be a good one. So now state into route handlers is going to be interesting because there's going to be we'll still have a video for it, but we won't have an assessment associated with it. So let's do passing state into route handlers. So that will be article video. All right. Let's see. So we'll keep this. Let's go ahead and copy you because I'm not sure which one I want to use yet. We'll create a new, and this will be Axum passing state into. I mean, passing state into route handlers is like the skill to do, but like maybe just like Axum state. State with Axum. I'll just call it Axum state. Oh, I tried to paste it, but I guess I deleted something somewhere. Oh, you know what I did? I did the space Y. That's what I did. Okay. By the end of this lesson, oh, Joey, have a great lunch. And if I see you, if I'm still streaming when you come back, then we'll say hi. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Friday too. Okay, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to. So state is interesting in Axum. It's I think that people attempt to overuse state a little bit, but I also think that it's still like got some things to work on in the language. So I wouldn't be surprised if it changes a bit. So what am I thinking here? for, well, you need to be able to, I guess like we'll start just randomly somewhere. So we need to pass, I guess like create a state, create a state struct. We'll just call it object at this point. So create a state struct, create a state object. We probably need to maybe describe what state is. It's like, okay, like, you know, hey, you know what state is. Create a state object. Let's see. We need to be able to get the state. So extract the state from a route handler. We need to be able to extract part of the state from a route handler. So if you just want like one little bit of the state instead of the full state, we need to be able to handle that too. Extract the full state, create a state object, describe what it is. There's also extensions, and extensions might be better for this. Well, okay, better for this? No. Do I want extensions to be a separate lesson? I actually don't know for this one. It'll certainly make it a lot longer if I throw in extensions here too. I think I'll keep it like this. And then if I need to create like I should actually create a so like we'll just do extensions. And I'll use that to track that I need to do something with that here. The plan that I have isn't necessarily in the order that they're going to be taught in. So I haven't actually like fully determined what the order that they're going to be in. Like I know that you need like, you know, responding with JSON comes before a lot of other things. So I can pretty much assume that most things know like, okay, here's how to respond with JSON. But like, will this come before or after extensions? I don't know. I don't know if it matters necessarily. We might have to have like another lesson for like, okay, which one to choose, state or extensions. So I probably want to not assume you've taken one or the other at this point in time. Okay, so if we do that, then what is state? So what is state in Axum? Well, I guess what is state? Let's go take a look at the official documentation for it. Unfortunately, the documentation for Axum is a little bit sparse. It's like very much on the like, here's like technical stuff, here's some like examples, but like here's not a lot of like how it fits together, and discover, but like here's like a description of what state really even is. Which is why I'm having to create so many of these myself. Mo Ali, hello. Welcome, Raiders. Mo, how was your stream? What were we working on today? You took a hiatus from streaming. In the same Jira Rust project, just some bug fixes and updates. What am I working on? We are now working on building an Axum course. So this is going to be a how to use Axum, how to build projects with it. I'm in the process of creating articles. So it's going to be the course is going to be made up of a combination of markdown articles and then videos. And then I also have assessments, which are you sort of take them and then you see whether or not you did it right or not. Then you run the tests. And then when I run the course, then that's going to be interesting too. So I'm not even halfway through writing all this stuff yet. We still got a lot to do, but we're just sort of slowly plodding along with it. It's Drago raiding with a party of 2. A lot of raids. Hello. Mo, how is your project going? I'll ask that now to get that going while I say, hey, Drago, how's your stream? What were you working on today? I like that more, Shauna. Hey, to YouTube, part 2. Hey, Drago, how's your stream? What are you working on today? I noticed that your stream when I'm still sleeping, so I don't know if I'm ever gonna have a chance to actually watch your stream. Mo, okay, it's going pretty good. You started using Jira Rust at work, and you found some self-inflicted bugs. Yeah, dog fooding tends to do that, but it's better for you to find the bugs than some paying customer, right? Use some unwraps where you shouldn't have. We just finished recording a lesson for error handling, and one of them was be careful about using unwraps. They can cause hard crashes, which in Axum is interesting because it actually doesn't crash. It kind of does and kind of doesn't. Drago, you've been working with a text that you're opened and count punctuation. Oh, okay. So you're going through, because if I remember correctly, you're learning, right? You're learning a language. Okay. So you're opening up a file and counting all the punctuation in it. That's interesting. Oh, you weren't thinking your Jira Rust would be a paid project? I could see that. Okay, yeah, you're a beginner in Python. Oh, those are fun times when you're just learning how to open up a file, read, set a cursor in the file, read through characters at a time, create a dictionary of all the stuff. There are patterns in there that are surprisingly useful everywhere in code in those specific exercises. Mo, gotta go. Thank you, Mo, again for the raid, and have a great rest of your Friday. Yeah, I don't necessarily open up files very often to read through them, but I do read through stuff to generate a object, so a dictionary essentially of things that then I can later on parse through very easily. That's an extremely common pattern. The number of times that somebody a backend that I'm not creating hands me data in a format that's not useful, and so I call it a translation layer. So you actually create you translate it from the form that you get to a form that your app can use, and that's all essentially dictionaries. That's exactly what it is. You'd like to be on a total other level next year, but you have to fake to be a patient person. I can understand that. I'm fairly patient person when it comes to like coding and working with computer type things. But yeah, it will come. It's I like that. Patience will come. Just be patient. It could, like, the fake it till you make it can work too. Where you can, I don't know, it's almost like role playing where it's like, okay, it's like, you know, a chat GPT command. You're just telling yourself this, right? Like, I am a professional software developer. I do this for a living. People pay me money to develop software. I am currently learning a new skill that I can use at work. And this is, you know, this is that. And then you just sort of dive into it. I find that that's really helpful for like setting my brain mentality, and I don't necessarily get really upset about, oh man, the errors hit me, or something else. Watching somebody who you consider to be like a pro can help out a lot. Having a mentor that you can chat with can help out a lot. There's a lot of really cool stuff. And I think it's a good time to become a software developer because there's so many good resources out there. All right. I'm expecting important emails from work people today, so I have to like constantly check. But haven't received anything yet. I don't know if I'm going to get it later in the day or early in the day. It's one of those like, well, I guess I just got to have my phone sitting here and waiting. Best worst time to start is right now. Yeah. What's that that old proverb? The best day, the best time to like plant a tree is like yesterday, but the second best time is today. I repeat that to myself constantly. Drago cheered with 1 bit. Thank you so much, Drago, for the 1 bit. But yeah, like if you have any questions, like I consider this a learning stream. I am perfectly happy with like answering any questions. I haven't used Python in like a professional sense in a while, but Python's Python. I can answer some basic questions on it. Oh, chat, hello. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. Oh, that's another really good one. Yeah, I had a coworker who basically told that to the students every time we had a group project. Is like, come on, you can't, like, nobody. I think like I can count the number of developers that work solo, like truly solo, on like one hand. Like everybody works with somebody else eventually. All right. So, what are we working on? Oh, right. Passing state in. We're back to here. So what is state in Axum? Should we talk about state in general? I'm actually curious. It's been a while since I've looked this up. Let's go take a look at Wikipedia. State. Maybe I should just go like state. Okay, programming, state, definition, wiki, like what? In informational technology and computer science, a system is described as stateful if it is designed to remember preceding events or user interactions. The remembered information is called the state of the system. So that's like really like that's like 99% of the way that I would say that we use state in a server like Axum. Because what I these days, um, servers like Axum, we want them to be stateless actually. Like that's the best practice is to not have state in memory, but use state in a database. So a state is actually going to be things like holding your database connections, like your database pool. And something like CORM, SQL, like what's the other one? There's the other SQL connector. I forget what it's called, but like it also is, all of them store their connections in an arc, which means we can clone them freely. And then those are perfect to throw into a state that we can then uh, uh, share behind, across everything. But that being said, I I don't think that I don't think that the state that we have in Axum is actually useful as like a computer science state. I don't think they're one to one, which is unfortunate. I kind of like when it was extensions before because it was a different thing. Um, does Rust panic? Does panic? Uh, oh, let's see. I'm gonna go further back. Drago, you need to have more followers. So you will not be alone. Well, I'm following you, but unfortunately, you stream when I'm still asleep, so I don't think my follow helps. But at least I got that number up. Maybe someday I'll wake up early enough that I can actually go and hang out with you. Um, Chat, does panic in Rust impact control flow like exceptions in other languages? More specifically, when panic does not, like when does panic not terminate the program? Is that the question? Is like when does it not terminate the program? Morishana, thank you for hanging out. Have a great rest of your Friday. Okay, so when panic, so it gets interesting in Rust because there is that panic macro. So where it does not. So the problem, so there's the panic macro. The panic macro is supposed to terminate the program. In Axum, it does not because it terminates the thread, or it terminates the async sort of run time wherever that's running, wherever Tokyo has decided to run it. And that won't crash the program. It'll stay up. It'll sort of like relaunch and handle that. So generally speaking, a panic and an unwrap and an accept and unimplemented, like there's a host of these sort of like panic macros, and they will, I mean, it's kind of funny to say, like they will 100% of the time, except when they don't, except when they're handled, crash the thread. So it's sort of like calling a throw in every other language. That's the equivalent. Like they're like a throw. It is possible actually to catch a panic in a parent function, and I've only seen that ever happen in Axum. I've never seen any other libraries actually catch a panic. Usually they don't do any kind of panics. They do results, and results are not panics. They're more of an error an error method of sending errors and bubbling them up the program without any panics happening. So does that answer your question? It basically, the community has panics happen and crash the program like 99% of the time. And it only doesn't if we handle it. And I might be able to find how to handle it. It's been a while. I think we go to docs. Oh, it's doc.wrestling, of course. In Axum, it does not change flow because when panic happens, it is end of control flow for the request. Yes, so we played around with this a little bit. So here, if I come back to this example that we have running here, in my route handler, if I just throw a panic in here, and I run this function, or I call it, it definitely crashes because the server doesn't respond at all. So like it gets a connection forcibly closed, it gets nothing back, but the server stays up. So it doesn't crash the program. It crashes. It like crashes at that point, but then Axum is handling that and keeping Axum running. So that's an interesting thing. But the rest of that route handler, that's done. That's dead. Non-linear, hello. Your pronouns are she, they. You go by Boolean, because even when you're wrong, it's only by a bit. I love it. And then non-linear NB. Do you prefer non-linear or NB? Or both? Or either? And I'll try to remember that. It's I get names wrong a lot. It's one of the fun things. I love that. Open close div. How do you annoy a web developer? Close a span. By improper HTML. It's a trick question. It's too easy. We can annoy a developer by just using proper code in a language that they don't use. All right. So, does that answer? Okay. So previously, chat, does that answer your question about panics? It's a little bit hard to sort of answer that because panic is such a harsh, we're done, but also you can technically capture it. There are two ways to write error-free programs. Only the third one works. Off by one error. And yeah, that does. Okay, awesome. We'll go back to this. All right. What is state in Axum? Well, the definition of state doesn't help for this. Sorry for the bad jokes. Oh, don't apologize for that. I am known for bad puns in I guess there are no bad puns. They're just puns. I am known for puns at my day job. To the point where there has been some question of whether or not I should be allowed in some meetings. What did the geometry teacher say to the student who was having trouble with a Pythagorean theorem? Don't worry, it's just a theorem about the length of the hypotenuse. What's my day job? I'm the technical team lead for the web services team at a VR training health training company. So I don't get to program VR type stuff. It's so I don't get to do that kind of thing, but I do have like a company owned VR headset that I have to put on like almost every day and sort of check things out. But I do a lot of like sort of web services for that, team lead type stuff. So I'm also into like management and running teams, building teams, that kind of stuff. Axum is at the top of the Tech Empower Web Framework Performance Benchmark. It is, and it's one of those things though where years ago I stopped paying attention to those performance benchmarks because I don't trust them. Why do you rarely find mathematicians spending time at the beach? Because they can divide sin and cosine to get a tan. I'm trying to figure out like, oh, to get a tan. I literally missed the tan in my brain. I got the right definitions for those words for everything but tan, and then my brain was like, "We go off and actually like do something else." But that's a good one. Maybe someday we'll create something where we can like store and then replay the jokes. That'd be awesome. When I was a teacher, look, you tell me a UPD joke, but I probably wouldn't get it, and you wouldn't be able to tell. Wait. I shouldn't have read that out. I should have just stared at you. You keep yours in database? Haha, I like that. When I was a teacher, I had our students for a couple cohorts. I made students tell jokes at stand up. We did stand up, and like that was one thing. We wanted at least one joke per day at stand up to sort of break the air, get everybody like, ready to go. That worked really well. I did have a professional comedian in one cohort at one point in time. And that was interesting because he had never done clean jokes before. So that was a experience for him. All right, we're gonna focus on this. I may not read all of the jokes out, so sorry about that in advance. But in breaks, I will definitely get those. So this will be the last one for right now. But every once in a while, I'll read them. How can you tell the difference between a math teacher and an English teacher? Ask them to define hyperbolic. That feels just more of truth. Okay, what is state in Axum? So maybe like state is state in programming is like stored data that can be updated as the program runs and updated and retrieved. Updated and retrieved, I guess. Updated. Updated and retrieved as the program runs. This can be very helpful as we can mute, like keep running totals, connections to external systems, and I don't know, just like, and anything else we want to keep in memory but not put in a database. State in web servers play a similar role, but we have to be careful about what we put into state. So we have to put what into state because actually we have to maybe not that. We have to be aware of how the server will be deployed, which will change how state change what we can safely put in state. I remember this is something for some reason my brain is like pretty good at like just sort of understanding what this is, but I do understand like a lot of people with their first coming into web development. And so I'm actually curious for all of you here, what is your experience with web servers? Like, have you built and deployed a lot of them? I would assume that a bunch of you are web developers, but I don't want to assume that fully. I believe that a bunch of people are going to be coming from like, I believe my target audience here is going to be people who are new to web development and want to go straight, but no Rust, or not new to web development, but want to learn Rust and Axum. Like those are the two things. So one is going to be like, I totally know this and I'm good to go. And one is going to be like, what do you mean? My program is just running. It's just here. Ron Dev, hello. You have more experience with setting up infrastructure, your own infrastructure, been working with program development for years, started web stuff seriously a few months ago. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Also, if you know infrastructure, that's you probably know this more than like most people who have only like just started web stuff. But yeah, so like the big thing, and it's a little bit hard to wonder how I'm gonna like just show this off. I don't want to use images if I can. Like maybe I can use some like ASCII art for this. Isn't there like an AI image system that like can create ASCII art? Or do you have to have like art first and then it creates ASCII art from that? That's not what I want. I don't want to have to draw it out and hand it to him. Demolroy, hello. You built and deployed web servers in quite a few languages. Node Go, yeah. So you're very familiar with probably what the problem that I'm alluding to here is. Okay, so you manually set up your CI/CD pipeline fully locally. Spent 12 hours getting Next.js to work. Nice. Oh, you know what? Front-end only developers might not understand this problem. There's a completely different set of problems that front-end developers have from back-end developers. It's a fascinating world. But full stack is like you kind of get the full gamut of the experience. Okay, so oftentimes we deploy. So I think the real problem of the matter is that like you've been running your web server since like 2018 or so you've dabbled. Have you ever scaled? Scaling is where we run into problems. Or is it just like a single binary web server where it's like you never needed to scale? Most of mine at home, my personal ones, I've never needed to scale. But professionally, Absolutely. Like I've had it to like run horizontal scaling on quite a few servers. Oftentimes we deploy haven't had the need to scale i7 and 64 gigabytes of RAM, so you're set to handle a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. It's scaling is where we run into trouble with state. And it's because of the way I should rename that. Scaling is a point a time that we can run into trouble with state because it depends upon how we set up the load balancer. Because like the load balancer is where everything goes in. It's like, do I need to like have and like write out how network works? I might need to. I don't know if I need to do that fully or though. But the general idea here is that your traffic from a web browser is going to come in. So let's just imagine we have one user here, one user out of like 100,000. So we have a scaling situation. Discord bot developers might have run into sharding, which is the same realm to what you're referring to. Yeah. So your one web browser. So let's just say like one person. They only have one web browser theoretically. They don't hit the server directly. They hit the load balancer. The load balancer then says, "Hey, you are gonna go to this web server," and depending upon how we configure, there's a multiple configurations we can do for the load balancer. We could say that it memorizes the traffic and it says, all right, let's see, you're good. You are assigned to server 15. You're going to that one. If I see traffic from you again, you're always going to that server forevermore. That is not common. That is actually an expensive method because it means that that server now has to remain up. And you can't like just sort of remove it if you don't need it anymore. So usually what we do is something called round robin, where somebody comes in and goes like, this is like I've done the initial request to get the initial HTML. You do like another request to get like more JSON. You do another request. Meanwhile, every single time they come to the load balancer is essentially somebody who's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care who you are. Next on the list, you're going to server 17. That same one comes back and says, hey, that was really cool. I would like to follow up with the previous request and get like another thing. It's like, okay, you're going to server 2 now. It's like, well, I was just at server 17. No, you're going to server 2 now. And you aren't like, they don't tell the web traffic like, hey, you're going to this server, be aware. It's more of like, nope, you're going to that server, and the server doesn't know it's different traffic, and the client doesn't know that it's different traffic, which means that if you stored state about a specific client and their specific session in memory, you don't know if the next time that client comes, if that state is going to be set there for it. It might be another client that gets to read that state. So it's not safe to store things in memory in state unless you know that you only have one instance of the server running at all times, or you're not, or you're doing memorization for your load balancing stuff. So, I guess maybe I just go straight there. When we scale up web servers, or I guess like API servers, we'll often use a load balancer that will determine which which server gets used, or gets the traffic, gets each request. Most load balancers are set up with a strategy called round robin. Now, we can maybe do like a round robin load balancing strategy. Okay, so there's Engine X document for that. Avi. AWS has an article on it. I'm a little bit hesitant to send people to AWS because their documentation is super good and terrible at the exact same time, which is really impressive. There's like a lot of it's like a science article on it. That doesn't sound like a good idea. Oh, and that's dynamic weighted round robin, so I definitely don't want that. What are you going to tell me? Yeah, you're way too complex. Okay, so how about wiki? Is there a Wikipedia? Round robin DNS load balancing? No, I just don't know a good article to send people to. So maybe I just won't send anybody to anything. When we scale up API servers, we'll often use a load balancer that will determine which server gets each request. Most load balancers are set up with a strategy called round robin, which will send traffic to like each called round robin, where each request will be sent to the next server in the list. Okay, so it gets sent to the next server in our list. This means that we can't predict, we can't know for sure that a client will be hitting the same instance of our server each time they make a request. For the most part, our code will handle this just fine without having to change anything. Adding in state is where like this can go sideways. So like adding in state is we need to be careful. Need to be careful when adding in state to make sure that we aren't assuming that every request is coming from the same client. Stacking, hello. Just hitting the home page, you're most likely hitting a few hundred servers. I mean, yeah, if you go to something like Google, even though it's such a simple looking page on the front end, there's entire under the ocean, um, uh, sort of like hundreds, tens, thousands. It's hard to tell how many servers there are. That's if your assets aren't on S3. I mean, to be honest, if your assets are on S3, but you're hitting a CloudFront um, server, then you probably are hitting a lot because there's so many weird things that are happening. But it's like you're not going to necessarily be hitting the same one every time. And I think that's the key is like, it's not that you're not hitting hundreds, it's that you're not hitting the same hundreds every time. It's that you're hitting a different one every time. And you can't point to one and predict which one you're going to hit. And your code certainly can't predict, okay, client A comes to me and then the next request or the next time that client A comes to me, it's going to be to this instance of me. It's almost like, this is a new, okay, I just got an idea for like a new metaphor, so I'm going to workshop it with you, all of you. It's almost as if we are a class and we're trying to predict which instance of the object spun off from us are. Does that work? I feel like that's not really all that helpful. You didn't hear it, but judging by the silence, well, thank you, Stacking. Uh, yeah, I don't know if it was that good either. Okay, for the most part, our code will handle this just fine without having to change anything. We need to be careful when adding in state to make sure that we aren't assuming that each client is going to be hitting the same instance of the server. Yeah, so I often see in like Discord when I was on Reddit and sort of like looking through there, I saw it there too. Students run into it a lot. I see we're so used to writing code where it's like one program, one client, or one program, multiple clients, but it's always the same thing. Every time that you make a request or you interact with the program, it's the same person. And web development put this on its head because in web development, our servers get spread out. We have like, well, no, the server is one of n servers, sometimes one, sometimes 10, sometimes 1,000, and then back to one again. It just auto goes up and auto scales down. And then also we don't know the number of clients that goes up and down too. And it gets really interesting. Sometimes we have like 10 users, but all using one client, or the other way around. Usually the other way around. It's one user, 10 clients. That's always fun. And we have to consider all of that. Okay, so for the most part, a code will handle this fine, and it will. Like doing any like basic logic, if it's just like basic in and out, we really want to write our servers in a almost as if it's like a functional way, like a functional programming sort of like paradigm. Want to like consider that like we don't want to store state per like inside of the thing. Yeah, that's the problem, is like because we do need state, but the problem is like I need that to be like generic to the program, not generic to the user. Okay. This means we only want to store data. We want to store not just data. Like we want to store things for the server rather than for the client. Any state we want to store for the client needs to go in a database. Okay. So back to what is state then? For Axum, we'll be storing things like the database connection. Okay, so there's that. Let's create a state object. Creating a state, creating a state. Man, that's fun. I just got 2 emails from the same person 8 minutes apart about the same exact thing that they want me to buy for SEO strategy for the day job. I don't know how I guess I'm on their mailing list twice, or their mailing program had a little bit of problem. So that's fun. Okay, creating a state. So let's exit out of here. What? I did Control D. Oh. Okay, there we go. Mermaid syntax is more difficult than you remember. It's tedious, but it's actually pretty good. Joey, welcome back. Let's see. When did you leave? That was like it was like half an hour, 20, 30 minutes ago. I think we had already recorded the thing. We got a couple raids. We chatted a lot. Oh, we had a lot of jokes. If you scroll up, there's plenty of totally not pun-based jokes. Totally not. Definitely not. So if you enjoy those, scroll back up. Let's see. Then we're starting an article on state. And so I chatted a bit about how web servers are deployed, as specifically scaled up, and how we're supposed to how we probably need to not store things that we're used to storing in memory in web servers. You suspended your laptop, so you lost that part of the chat history. Oh, I'm sorry about that. They were good. Like, I do like puns, so I always think that they're really good. I know a lot of people groan and like, but I feel that if you're groaning about it, that actually means you like it, and you're trying to, like, you know, you're showing your appreciation. And so we're going to be playing around with state type stuff. So where do I want to put state? I can throw it into lib, because there's not really much special stuff where it goes. Where do I want to put this? I mean, so I have the server here that has like the address and the port. These I generally don't need as part of the state. I guess we could create a new thing. So we'll put into source. Let's put state RS. Hey, you added in there. Good. Okay. All right. State, as far as I know, only needs to implement clone. And I think it'll yell at me if I don't do that. So let's do this. Let's go put you in here. As part of the layer, we're gonna have a with state, and then we want to put in something like that. With state, we'll then add you in. And then you should yell at me. Not in... Okay, yeah, finally in here. The trait bound state absolute clone is not satisfied, and I think that's the only place he yells at me. So if we come here, we're going to derive clone. And I think there's a lot of people who are confused about why state has to implement clone, and talk a lot about the answers that I usually see reference, oh, like there's the multiple threads and like it has to be cloned to go through them, and from a very like sort of technical level of like how that's working. But it's if we go back to the previous discussion about how if we have many different instances of our application running, it also sort of like is explained at that point in time. A state is not meant to be storing data from like one session to another for a specific client. We can't trust that that state is really going to be the same from one to another. So really our state is essentially unique per instance of Axum. Oh, that's a good way to put it. The state is unique per instance of Axum, and when we're writing the server, we're guaranteed to have one locally when we run it, but in production, we're not, because most likely we're going to be using some kind of cloud to store it, to serve it, and most likely, to be cheap, we're going to, yeah, it's server state, not client state. Excellent. Yeah, it's like there's nothing in there. I'm creating a state. Yeah, that's the way we should think about it. It's server state, not client state. It's state for the server, not for the client. The client, and once again, right? This is the type of thing that like just hammer it in until it's like it's integrated in. Client state goes in a database. You can have more than one database connected to an Axum server. I know a lot of people that put on something like Redis, and you can throw all the state in there. Throw all the state in there, and you can have all your instances of Axum can connect to a single Redis server, and it'll be fine until you get to a certain level, and then you start replicating Redis. But don't worry about that. If you're worrying about that, you know, and you're in a big enough company that they're telling you about it. Also, it's a really good problem to have, that many people hitting your servers. Hopefully you're making lots of money. Let's see. Creating a state. So all right. States. So let me just start like throwing this in there. I think stacking, you're onto something. We'll just say like server states in Axum are simple structs. Is that right? Can I do whatever I want with this? I feel like I could just do something else here. I could probably do like a pub enum other state. And as long as it implements clone, oh, I can do multiple states, right? I can't even, oh, this is not even going to work, because that would be silly to do it. But can I? Just because it's silly doesn't mean I shouldn't try. Like thing. Because it has to be a specific thing I pass in. So can I then use other state here? I would bet that I can. It's not going to care. And then I can grab out the state based upon its type. So I can have multiple states in here. It can be whatever I want. I could probably do something like with state as an I32. We could do like 0. And that would be fine too. Like it's okay with this. It's as silly as this is, it's okay with that. Server states in Axum are simple. Let's actually change this. A state in Axum is anything that, or maybe, oh, the only requirement. How about that? The only requirement for a server state in Axum is that it implements clone. Besides that, anything goes. While we can choose anything like a number, enum, a number or an enum, a struct tends to be the best choice for a state, for a server state. I think you can just straight inject multiple struct states. I think that I can't do multiple struct states of the same type, right? So if I do state 0, let's do with state, state again, so we clone you. That's actually, okay, this is interesting. It lets me do it. Even at runtime, it lets me do it. I was kind of hoping it would have a runtime check where they're like sort of stuffing the state into like a hash map or something else, and then saying, "Ooh, you just overwrote the any type, like the type ID or something of it." So that's interesting. All right. Okay, so now I'm curious. Let's diverge from the left a little bit and explore state. So here in my app state, let's do a simple count. And we're gonna start with, this is a I32. All right, so I32 that implements clone and copies. So state. We have count. We're gonna start you with 0, and then I want to do let state 2 is equal to state dot clone. Actually, I'll just do another one. App state count will be 55. Okay, so then with state 2. Okay, so I have so many states here. So I have 3 versions of app state in here. 2 of them are going to be count 0, and one of them is going to be count 55. None of these are in like an arc or anything else that's thread safe. So every time it's going to be 55, and this number cannot change. Or rather, if I change it, the next time I grab it, it will still be 55 because, clone. So now let's do something about that. So I want source, routes, sort of like get state. I am not super happy that like VS Code / Helix are constantly like searching in like here. It's like not getting and showing me like the right get. Like there is literally a thing called get, and these are all like part of get. So I don't really get the order that they're choosing this from. That's not cool. Okay, so you should be happy there. You're unhappy. Why are you unhappy? Your private field. Let's fix that. Oh, come on. Hub. Oh, enums don't have pub. That's not a thing. Okay. Okay, so you're happy there. Let's head to... We'll just hit you with insomnia. That's fine. And then just make sure that this is working. So instead of panic, we are now going to state. Okay, 200. Okay, we're good to go. Get state. Now, getting the state. This is as simple as we have our state. That would be Rust Analyzer giving the bad suggestions, by the way. I figured it would be. Is there a way to configure Rust Analyzer for suggestions? To like tweak how it gets the suggestions? That would be nice. Or like maybe even middleware, like plugins for Rust Analyzer? Like it might slow things down, but can you imagine plugins? Like, if you could have a pre-compiled binary written in Rust that Rust Analyzer can then call between when it searches for stuff and when it displays them. That could be interesting. Oh, so I probably want like something like this state. It's gonna be a state. And then okay, so let's grab out app state first. So first of all, no compile errors. And if I run this, so far, no major errors like that. That would be a decently complex project. Yeah, it probably would be. But it would be awesome to have. As far as I know, that would be like the first language tool that would allow any kind of plugin type things. There's probably like security considerations and all sorts of other stuff that would have to get injected in there, but hey, it would still be interesting. All right, so let's if I debug, okay, so as part of state, let's also derive debug. And we're just going to straight up debug state. Okay, and we will full screen you. All right. You go over to that side now. Okay, so we get that count 0. The count 0 was the first one. So this state right here, that's the count 0 one. We also have state that's also count 0, but then state 2 is also an app state, and that was count 55. So if I move state 2 up here, I bet that we're going to get 55 out of that. Yes, okay. So mental model They are when you create a new state with this state and you add it into Rust, so when you add it into Axum, if the state has already been registered by the type ID, it will not add a new. It will not overwrite it. It will just quietly ignore it behind the scenes. I do have debug, right? I have debug stuff set up, or do I need to... Oh, no, I don't. I need to resource my... Need to resource you. Maybe there is a... maybe there's something here. Okay, so you're not yelling at me yet. Yeah, so you don't yell at me and say like, hey, there are multiple versions of state. Did you really want to do that? Okay. So that's good to know. Now where do I want to put this in here? So like creating the state. Sudo, hello. How are you doing today? Let's double check that it just works as expected. So we have other state is other state, and then I also have the I32. Wow, look at this. The types being returned are being influenced by the thing after it. So this type, app state, other state, when this is the other state, but this is the I32. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. You're doing swell, more studying on data structures and algorithms. Nice. How are those doing? I'm doing pretty good. It's Friday. Friday is always nice, and we're playing around with state stuff. That's always fun too. Okay, so let's try. Okay, let's try. So we have app state here. Now, there's a couple things here going on. Let's get just to make sure, because I have 3 states that are all app state. So if I get all 3 of them, so we have state 2, and state 3. They should be all unique and different. That's what we'd hope for, but they are all the same, which also is kind of what we expect them to be. They're probably doing well on their shiny temple on the mountain. It's a long, painful road up. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that as being a metaphor for it. I could also see it as like, because they're different data structures are like a big tower, right? Because data structures and algorithms build on each other. Like, you're not really going to do very well with some of the more advanced data structures and algorithms if you haven't mastered the previous ones. Yeah, you definitely collect some on the way up for sure, for sure. Or if we use your mount example, maybe they're like tools. Like it makes it easier to climb up. You get some. Oh, I'm not a climber, so I don't know any of the names of the tools. So like, what are the picks that you use to like pick any things, or like you put your like you put in like the little eye hole to throw in the rope so that you don't fall. Ice picks maybe. Yeah, you're not sure either. Yeah, we're yeah. It can become easier. It becomes easier when you get higher because of the stuff you've collected. But if you haven't learned them, it becomes harder, which is super fun. Okay, so we have that, and then we want to come back to here. So okay, we've got state. So if I change you, so app state, this one is going to be other state. And then finally, you're going to be an I32. Oh, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Your error. Oh, interesting. Okay, so is it the I32 that you don't like? Other state? Oh, okay. Getting the same state is fine. As soon as I try to get other state in here, bam, you don't like this. That's an enum. It'll all be worth it. You're telling yourself. It will. Don't worry. It will be worth it. Okay. I have a cool state, which is a distinct state from app state, but it's also an enum. So I want to make sure that it's not something like enum versus struct states. But you're still in an error state. The following types, other types of implement traits, required for state, cool state to implement from request parts, app state. Interesting. Okay, so we can only pull in a single state per route. Per route handler. That might include the middleware for the route too. Okay. This is interesting. I'm gonna get rid of that to delete so we can keep it. Because it's after 8:49. It's time for me to head off to my day job. So Let's see. Done a lot of we've rated Raimu a lot. We've rated Kuvi Man a lot, but he's still streaming. He's making 3D paint. He's doing a lot of Rust code still, in a custom engine. So let's send a bunch of you over to him. Kuvi Man is raid Kuvi Man. All right. For the rest of you, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We've been writing a lot on. We've been spending a lot of time on the state stuff. I'm really looking forward to finishing this. I plan on being back tomorrow. No, Monday. Today's Friday, so I'll be back Monday morning. I believe around the same time. But if there's any changes, then I will put those out onto Discord. I'll also have an announcement because I think things are changing, but I'm under NDA for like until Monday. And I don't know what that's going to look like until the end of today. So things may or may not change. I don't know. So I'll find out for then and let you all know at that point in time. So with that all being said, thanks again for hanging out. We were able to get some cool stuff done with videos and all this. I will be, I'll be back Monday. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.